All right, so Ralph spent the weekend alone in the empty school. The kids came back on Monday morning very upset by what they read in the newspaper. They didn't feel like it matched what had actually happened. The information silenced the class but left Ralph burdened with guilt. He was just a little mouse trying to get along in the world. He hadn't meant to cause so much trouble. Melissa spoke out. Miss Kay, maybe if there are other mice and we can catch Ralph again, we could find him a girlfriend mouse and then have a mouse wedding. Oh, yes, cried the other girls. The boys were not polite about this suggestion. Neither was Ralph. Well, Miss Kay commented, we don't know where Ralph is, and perhaps we should wait to write our letters until after the investigation. After all, there may be more mice in the school. The disappointed class, who had been planning to write angry letters, had to agree. But Miss Kay, said Gloria, isn't your first name Heidi? Why, yes it is, Miss Kay laughed. Then how come the reporter called you Bambi? Asked Gloria. Well, she must have confused her book characters. That was Miss Kay's amused answers, but Ralph saw nothing to be amused about. What would an investigation mean? Would it mean hungry cats? An exterminator with traps and poisons? Fumigation with deadly, gassy fumes seeping through the halls? That new electric mouser that made a noise only mice could hear and sent them screaming into the night? The night filled with coyotes and owls? Oh, Ralph was sure of one thing, and only one thing. He had to escape from Irwin J. Sneed Elementary School, and he had to escape soon. And that brings us to page 123, chapter 8, Ralph Speaks. Ralph was tired of skulking about, hiding in mittens and boots, scrounging for glue-flavored seeds from art projects, and eating sugar, which he had overheard kids say rotted your teeth. And he was nervous about the mouse hunt that was about to begin at Sneed School, all because he had innocently wanted to leave the inn to save old Matt's job. Ralph felt like he was being blamed for everything that went wrong, and that trying to be a good mouse was not so worthwhile. Ralph left Melissa's boot because he didn't want Ryan to find him. He slipped behind a row of books about health in a bookcase under the window and sat there, pondering large problems like the unfairness of life and the shortage of liberty and justice for well-meaning mice. Ralph wanted to return to the inn, but knew that even if he found some way to get there, he could never face the jeering little relatives. First, they would demand to know what had happened to his motorcycle. Then they would tell him it served him right it was broken, because he'd been so selfish. But I've got to go someplace, Ralph decided. Maybe he could move into a restaurant in Cucaracha. Now that the snow was melting, there was no longer any danger of being buried. However, his little feet might freeze, or he might drown in a puddle of dirty slush. And he was too angry with Ryan to ask for any help from him. What Ralph needed was transportation, other, of course, than his feet. Ralph tried to make plans. If he could somehow get hold of the pieces of his motorcycle, and if he could manage to nip off a strand of Miss Kay's strong, long hair, maybe he could tie his motorcycle together again. While Ralph sat brooding behind the books, he was not forgotten by Room 5, who found the problems of a mouse much more interesting than writing sentences or spelling words. Hands were raised and questions asked. But Miss Kay, Don't you think we should try to find Ralph? Somebody might step on him. Miss Kay, how are they going to investigate the school for mice? Miss Kay, are they going to poison Ralph? Miss Kay put down her chalk and gave up trying to teach. Miss Kay, said Ryan, I'm sure Ralph is the only mouse here. He could have done all those things by himself. Ryan's words gave the class hope for Ralph. Oh, I know what we could do, said Melissa. We could get him to walk across the stamp pad so he would leave purple footprints. That way, we could see if he went to the cafeteria and the library and all those places where they found evidence of mice. Ralph groaned. Purple feet? That Melissa and her bright ideas. The class was quick to point out that the ink would soon wear off, and that Ralph would have to keep running back to the stamp pad, which no mouse would do. Anyway, they'd have to find him first. Well, class, said Miss Kay, I can see we're not going to get any work done until we find out more about the superintendent's investigation. If you promise to work quietly on your spelling sentences, I'll go ask the principal what he plans to do. The class promised to work quietly. Of course they'd work quietly. Didn't they always work quietly when the teacher left the room? Ralph climbed on the top of a book to watch. But as soon as Miss Kay left, Melissa, taking the precaution of leaving the door open, posted herself as a lookout. When Miss Kay was safely out of sight, everyone began to whisper at once. Wads of paper flew back and forth. Ryan pulled the broken motorcycle out of his pocket and said to Brad, See what you did? By standing on his hind legs on the top of the book, Ralph was able to see the remains of his motorcycle. Oh, more than Miss Kay's hair was needed to fix that wreck. His motorcycle was broken in 2 pieces. The muffler was dangling. The spring forks were bent. The handlebars were twisted. Oh, Ralph felt sick looking at it. Sick and angry. Brad scowled. Why don't you just buy him another one? You're a rich kid. Why should he, thought Ralph. Brad was the one who broke it. I am not a rich kid. Ryan was astonished by Brad's remark. Then how come you live in that big hotel? Demanded Brad. 'Cause my mom works there, said Ryan. I eat in the kitchen with the maids and waitresses. Oh. Obviously, Brad had not known this. Where's your dad? I don't know. Ryan was sensitive about this subject. Someplace, I guess. Psst, hissed Melissa and scooted back to her seat. Quiet as mice, thought Ralph, as heads bent back over their spelling words. Miss Kay was smiling as she walked to the front of the room. The class put their pencils down and looked up, waiting for her answer. Mr. Crossman, the superintendent, the boss of all the schools, called Mr. Tanner this morning to ask about mice at Sneed School, she told the kids. Mr. Tanner said he didn't think there was much to worry about, that the reporter got carried away. Mr. Crossman said that was good, because since people voted for Prop 13 and taxes had been cut, the school district couldn't afford an exterminator. Mr. Tanner told him not to worry. He'd have Mr. Costa set some mouse traps overnight to see what happened. Mr. Crossman said there was enough money in the budget for 5 mouse traps. Traps, thought Ralph. What a joke. Was that the investigation? Someone asked. 1 phone call? Mrs. K laughed. Yes, class, that was the investigation. Even though the class was concerned for Ralph's safety, everyone felt a little disappointed. They had expected some excitement, a team of men in white uniforms maybe, and the school closed down for a few days while they looked for mice. Uh, if Mr. Costa doesn't catch any mice, do we get to write our angry letters to the Cucaracha Village Voice? Asked Gloria. Yes, class, that's right, agreed Miss Kay. Oh, what if Mr. Costa catches Ralph? Someone asked. Others voiced the same worry. Ralph was insulted. Hadn't he proved how smart he was by finding a new way to run the maze? He knew all about mouse traps. As soon as he was old enough to leave the nest, his mom had taken him to see a baited trap in the kitchen and explained its evils one by one. Well, we'll just have to take that chance, said Miss Kay. Now please settle down and finish those spelling sentences. Spelling sentences were all Room 5 did manage that morning. At lunch, some of the girls began to call, Ralphie! Ralphie Mouse! Where are you, Ralphie? As they grabbed their lunch boxes. Ralphie! Ralph would never to answer to such a silly name. He noticed Brad was the last to leave, as if he were not eager to join the others for lunch. Suddenly, though, Ralph's anger boiled over. He didn't care if Brad looked lonely. He didn't care if Brad found out he could talk. He was going to take matters into his own paws and tell that boy a thing or two. Ralph leaped lightly from the top of the book, dashed across the floor, and sprang up on Ralph's jeans. I lost my page. Desperately, he clung by his toenails as Brad walked out of the room and slowly down the hall. Miss Kay locked the door of her room and caught up with Brad, put her arm around his shoulders, and said, Is there something I can do to help, Brad? Oh, I'm okay, was all Brad said. Well, if I can do anything, please let me know. Mrs. Kay let go of Brad and went down the hall. Neither had noticed the mouse clinging to Brad's pants. Ralph ran up Brad's legs onto the front of his shirt. Finally, Brad must have felt Ralph's toenails as he looked down. You thug, said Ralph. You broke my motorcycle. My only way of getting out of this place. I'm too little to wade through the slush. And anyway, walking isn't as much fun as riding my motorcycle, especially through puddles. Brad stared at Ralph. You can talk, he said, as if he didn't believe it. Of course I can talk. Not many people can understand me, but I can talk. How come I can understand you? Asked Brad. You're the type. You're lonesome, and you're interested in cars and motorcycles. That's the sort of kid who understands me. Brad seemed to be thinking this answer over as Ralph continued. How come you're lonesome? You're not a new kid like Ryan. Oh, that's none of your business, said Brad. Then realizing he admitted more than he intended, he contradicted himself. And I'm not lonesome. Aw, come on, coaxed Ralph, who by now was genuinely curious. You can tell me. Brad was stubbornly silent. I'm just a little mouse, you know, Ralph reminded him. Well, I live with my dad and Arfie, my dog. My parents got divorced, and my mom doesn't live with us anymore. And it's lonesome without her, confessed Brad. Oh, that's too bad. Ralph was sympathetic. His own mother nagged him, but he missed her right now. Well, Ryan's lonesome too, 'cause he's new here, Ralph told Brad. You two should get together. And that is where I'm going to stop. Have a good afternoon. I'll see you soon.